Hi, I'm Christa Hughbanks, and I was once upon a time a kid like you. I went to Perry Preschool. I also went to Artist Elementary in Ypsilanti, and as well as Cheney Elementary in Ypsilanti in the Willow Run area. I also went to two universities in the state of Michigan, right here in Washtenaw County. And so I went to Eastern Michigan University to be a social worker. So I have a bachelor's in social work and a minor in psychology. And I went to University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, where I went and got my master's in social work, and I got to do a lot of things with that, and I got to work with the mental health population. And so these are some of the opportunities that you all have right here. And if you're not here in Ypsilanti, you can come from all over the world like everybody else does, and you can come here and get a really good education with the rest of us. So, kids, make sure that you believe in yourself, that you ask questions when you're not sure, because once upon a time I didn't know I could do all these things. And I became an adult and asked my questions. So, ask your questions while you're children, okay? Today we're going to read Jump at the Sun. It says the true life tale of unstoppable story catchers Zora, Neale, Hurston, and Alicia D. William Newberry Honorary, and illustrated by Jacqueline Alcantara, I think. Jump at the Sun. In a town called Eatonville, a place where magnolias smelled even prettier than they looked. Oranges were as sweet as they were plump, and the people just plain old got along. Lived a girl who was attracted to tails like mosquitoes to skin. Zora was her name. Zora, that's a very pretty name. Zora got to loving tales from hearing the town's folk swamp stories at Joe's Clark's General Store. Oftentimes, Mama sent her over to fetch a little sugar or salt, and Zora would stall, make a 10-minute errand last an hour, just to overhear tales like how that trickster Breer Rabbit always got the best of Breer Fox. Only thing pulled her away was Mama calling, "Zora, if you don't come here, you better." Oh man, her mom just ruined her fun. Let me tell y'all how come we got squinch owls. You know, old Master had a old maid sister that never been married. That's the reason the dog is mad with the rabbit now, 'cause he fooled the dog. Y'all been telling and lying about these varmints, but you ain't yet spoke the high chief boss of all the world, which is the lion. When there were no errands to run, and Zora couldn't get an earful of tales, she'd make up her own. She'd fashion dolls from scraps she found. A loose doorknob became Reverend Doorknob. The do not touch Pierre's scented soap was carved into Mr. Sweet Smell. Ears of corn were hewed into Miss Corn Shuck and Miss Corn Cob. Zora had stories to tell, and stories needed characters. And these must be the characters that Zora created. Are you guys creative like that? Do you tell your own stories? And let's see what these characters are saying. They're saying, "Hello, Reverend Doorknob. Smelling good, Mr. Sweet Smell. Thank you kindly. Hello to you, Miss Corn Shuck." Those are some funny names. Do you guys think Zora made those up? Oh, yeah, she did. And then Mama sent Zora and her stories out of the house. Zora perched herself atop their gatepost, calling out to travelers, "Don't you want me to go a piece of the way with you?" If a car stopped, Zora climbed right in. She'd have those people laughing like she was storytelling on Joe's Clark's porch herself. Then half a mile or so later, she'd hop out and stroll on home. Now, Zora seems a little bit adventurous. Hopefully she knows these people that she's hopping in the car with. Now, back then, some folks called storytelling telling lies. And if Zora's preaching papa got home from church and caught her spouting them, he'd give chase lightning quick. Even Zora's grandma aimed to sting her backside. but never could, not with Mama's arms stretched wide as tree limbs. Truth was, Mama approved of Zora's storytelling. She didn't fancy the idea of her children telling land, so she encouraged Zora to jump at the sun. You might not land on the sun, but at least you'd get off the ground. And that's Zora running. Looks like her dad's trying to get her. Mom's arms are wide open. Then one September evening, Mama closed her eyes for the last time. I wonder what that means. Zora and her sister and brothers were so sobbing-hearted that even the house seemed to mourn. Uh-oh. Well, fact is, Zora clung to those words tighter than Breer Fox would have clung to Breer Rabbit if he'd even been able to catch him. Zora needed them too, because one day, Mama got herself a chest cold that wouldn't get better. Uh-oh. 2 days later, Zora's only sister and older brother headed back to school. Papa was already on the road preaching. His voice seemed manageable, but his tale-telling girl was too much for him to worry about. So 2 weeks after the funeral, he zipped Zora off to Florida Baptist Academy boarding school. Oh, no. So that means Mama is gone. And Zora's off to boarding school. How do you guys feel? Zora dug her nose in books, intent on reaching the sun. It was what Mama had always taught her to do. After all, then her papa got a new wife who was stingier than a peacock. Zora's stepmother tight-fisted their money. School fees went unpaid, and back to Eatonville Zora went. To hear Zora tell it, back home, the walls are gummy with gloom, and her little brother's in rag-dirty clothes. This was wrong, and Zora made it known. Fussing and fighting commenced from the kitchen to the gatepost. Finally, her stepmother pointed to the door and out stumped 14-year-old Zora down the dusty road. Oh, no, what do you guys think happened? We're going to find out. Though friends spared a pallet for sleeping, there wasn't time for Zora to be pondering the capers of Breer Rabbit. She had to earn her keep. But she was better at storytelling than holding a job. She was fired from maid jobs for reading the employer's books instead of cleaning. She up and quit babysitting her older brother's children when he quit on his promise to let her go back to school. For 12 long years, she traveled from job to job, from Florida to Baltimore, in and out of schools. Zora was miserable except for when she spooned out Eatonville trickster tales to whoever would sop them up. And sakes alive, folks were hungry. The son, however, was getting antsy waiting on Zora. So he called down saying, "Ain't you supposed to be meeting me up here?" Reckon Zora was getting antsy too. How was Zora to jump all the way to Old Big Yellow? By doing what made her happiest. And Zora was happiest at school and hearing those stories. In Baltimore, 26-year-olds couldn't go to public school for free. So Zora told a tale of her own. She chopped her age to 16, then plunked herself down in a high school classroom. Even though she had a lot less money than the other students, Zora walked through the halls like her shoes were lined with gold. The girl was back in school. Woo-wee. The son waited patiently for 2 more years until she graduated and then called out, "Jump, Zora." Uh-oh. So what is Zora doing now, you guys? So she did to Howard University. Oh, that's a real good college. The best part, all those years of tarrying around Joe Clark's and making up tales out of corn husks paid off. She shared her tales with the director of the Stylist, the college literary club. What's a literary club? Is that a book reading club or a storytelling club? And was offered membership. Oh, she's got a membership wherever this place is. Zora not only wrote for their magazine, but the door opened to other events where she met successful writers like W.E.B. Du Bois. Do you guys know who W.E.B. Du Bois is? Oh my gosh. Who wrote a book she loved, The Souls of Black Folk. Do you guys have that book? I read that book. I had to read it in college, and I bought it, and I got it. Soon she got to thinking, I want to be a famous author too. Me too, Zora. So Zora jumped again. Do you guys want to be an author? Thought I would ask. Well, let's see how you become an author. So Zora jumped again. She got herself a typewriter, and her fingers got the tapping, and all her Eatonville memories poured into them pages. One of her stories was even about a little girl sitting atop a gate post. Who's that little girl sitting on top of the gate post, you guys? Do you guys remember? Though Zora loved her schooling, she found she loved writing more. And at the time, new writers who wanted to get published went to one place. So in January 1925, Zora made her way to New York City. As in Eatonville, folks welcomed her. Do you guys get welcome for the things you like to do? Or do you get to talk about them? Make sure you're talking about those things you like to do. Just like Zora. During the day, she listened to book discussions at the library or lectures at the YMCA. Do you guys have a YMCA? I know we have one. And you can do all kinds of fun things there. So if you don't know, look up your YMCA. Come nighttime, Zora'd be swinging in Harlem, where Count Basie or Fats Waller pounded on the piano. Folks danced the Charleston. What is the This must be the Charleston. And do you guys know where Harlem is? I'll give you a hint. Wherever the Big Apple is. Once her feet were too sore for one more kick, Zora would hold court, surrounded by writers like Arna Bontemps, Fannie Hurst, and her best pal, Langston Hughes. Oh my goodness. She had a lot of friends. That's well known. Langston's poetry jumped at the sun for sure. If Zora's stories held the ears of these great writers, surely her mama was right that Zora could really reach the sun too. I think her mom was right too. Do you guys think her mom was right? You know, God did not make folks all at once. He made folks sort of in his spare time. For instance, one day he called everybody and gave out feet and knives. Another time he gave out toenails. You know, all the animals was having all balled down in the pine woods. These dogs said he'd be trumped at any band, any horse, any frog, any mockingbird, all be there to help. But they didn't have no bass drum. Once way back yonder, before the stars fell, all the animals used to talk just like people. This must be Zora's like storytelling or something from when she was a little girl. That spring, Zora jumped again. She mailed a handful of stories to a magazine literary contest. Her words were so alive that the judge saw the moss on the trees, smelled the sawgrass in the Everglades, and heard the men chanting on the railroad. Then those judges began chanting Zora's name. What do you guys think? Do you smell the grass when Zora reads? So it says, honorable mention, short story, Black Death by Neale Hurston. What else did she write? Honorable mention, play Spears by Zora Neale Hurston. Second place fiction award for Spunk by Zora Neale Hurston. And second place drama award, Color Struck by Zora Neale Hurston. Wow, Zora's like really successful with like what she really was passionate about doing. Getting any ideas yet, you guys? A fancy college heard about Zora's storytelling and offered her admission. But if there was one thing Zora had learned, it was that school was expensive, and she didn't have 2 nickels to rub together. Zora was doubtful. Jump, Zora, Mama's word sang. And wouldn't you know it, her jumping paid off. Bernard College offered her a scholarship. It wasn't much, but friends helped her out. Do you guys think she asked for help, too? Do you guys ask for help? And Zora put together a collection of tales from home, called it the Eatonville Anthology, and earned a bit from that. For the first time in all her schooling, Zora was able to stay in school. For her very last semester, Zora had one big project left to do, field work for her anthropology class. Do you guys know what anthropology is? What's going to tell us? Anthropology is the study of humans and their behavior. Oh, I'm going to say that again, you guys. Anthropology is the study of humans and their behavior. That's kind of like something I do. Her professor, Dr. Boyce, suggested that Zora collect Negro folklore. Do you guys know about that? I have a really good book about all the storytelling in all the history of black folks. You guys should really learn about Negro folklore. It is very creative. Now, folklore includes stories and beliefs passed down from generation to generation, exactly like the ones told at Joe Clark's Shucks. Dr. Boyce might as well have asked Zora to go down to Joe Clark's for some sugar. What do you guys think? Do you guys remember Zora as a little girl going to get sugar from the store? There once was this fella named John Henry. Now, he wasn't no ordinary man, you see. And that Breer Fox threw Breer Rabbit right into the thicket, just 'cause he drank up his water. This must be Zora telling the stories, right? She had heard Breer Rabbit's adventures and why the squinch owl screeched since she was a baby. How many lumps of sugar had she fetched to hear about High John the Conqueror? Or how many times had her mama called Zora? Of course, she'd go collect some stories. What's a squinch owl? Now, it's a loud screeching owl that once was well, he didn't finish his sentence. Zora looked up to the sky. I'm coming for you, son. And the sun smiled down. I know. Zora drove into Eatonville. And even after she'd been gone for 22 years, the town folks still recognized her. So wow, they still remembered Zora. She was a kid the last time, and now she's an adult. Well, if it ain't Zora Hurston. They rattled off questions before she could even answer them. You going to stay a while? Several months? Where you going to stay? I reckon. What you up to? I come to. Zora at last sat on Joe Clark's store porch. Then townsfolk ate gingerbread, drank buttermilk, and commenced to woofing about John and the Frog, the man who went to heaven, and Jack and the devil. As the menfolk plucked their guitar strings, it's said that even the moon dipped lower to get an earful of tales. What is this all about? But outside of Eatonville, folks zipped their lips to the meddling stranger with the notebook and northern accent to ease their minds. What's a northern accent, you all? Do you all know what a southern accent is? So that's like the northern accent, right? So it's where people sound different, right? From their communities, from their states, right? From their countries. Do you guys have an accent? And if you do, what kind? But outside of Eatonville, folks zipped their lips to the meddling stranger with the notebook and northern accent to ease their minds. Zora spun an unbelievable tale about her own self. I'm a bootlegger, running from the law. The folks then trusted she wasn't just snooping and offered her a treasure of folklore. Now, is Zora a bootlegger, you guys? What's a bootlegger? Went down to the river, heard a mighty racket, nothing but the bullfrog, pulling off his jacket. It was a man, and he was so big and fat till he went to whip his little boy for something. The little boy run up under his papa's belly and hid under there for 6 months. I'd telling this lie on the gator. Well, the gator was a pretty white varmint with coal black eyes. So one day he was laying up on grass in a marsh, sunning himself and sleeping with bear. Rabbits come busting across the marsh and run right over Brigader. Where do you think that accent comes from, boys and girls? Is that a northern accent or a southern accent? Zora's college project became one of the biggest jumps. Even after she graduated, she didn't stop collecting tales. She trekked all the way from Alabama to New Orleans to Haiti and the Bahamas, gathering as much folklore as a leopard has spots. And then she stopped jumping long enough to take her notebooks and tapes and find herself a home in Ugali, Florida. Hopefully I said that right. Do any of you have history in the islands or the South? I do. This book is getting real familiar. Is this familiar for you guys, or to your mommy or your daddy or your granny or your grampy? There on her porch with paper spread out, Zora took her biggest jump ever. She set up her typewriter, and her fingers got to tapping all those tales into books. Then she tapped up her very own stories and made her own books too. Zora, like her mama always dreamed, reached the sun. And now when you open these books, it's as if you were visiting on Zora's porch, just like she porch visited all those years ago. She'd offer you a chair and fill you full of high John D. Conqueror tales, or told you the talking mule lies she got from the Florida Railroad workers. Of course, she'd woof about that old Breer Rabbit and Breer Fox, too. Who did she learn that Breer Rabbit and Breer Fox from? Do you guys remember? And that sun would have beamed down mightily pleased just to listen. And that is the end.